All right. Today we have an extra special guest. We got the Reverend Dr. Franz
Oh my
Jackson with
goodness.
us. She is a geek and she is chic. She is a native of Columbia, South Carolina. And in 2018, she joined as a UX architect at Intel Corporation. So UX is user experience. But in general, her job entails working on a software innovation team where she creates new software experiences that help differentiate Intel architecture. She designs and explores software that creates unique experiences. One project that she worked on helped to make video game streaming easier and lowered the barrier for beginners. But she's a member of the One Edge team, where she leads the strategy, planning, and execution of activities to define and deliver industry leading experiences for Edge products and new and evolving enterprise network business segments like industry, retail, sports, hospitality, healthcare. She does it all. So, in terms of school, she got her Bachelor of Science in Industrial Engineering from Clemson University. She also got her Master of Science in Industrial Engineering at Clemson. She got her Ph.D. in Human Centered Computing from the University of Florida. And she is a notable because she is actually one of the first two Black women to graduate from the computer science department at UF. So, and I know it's true because my signature is there somewhere. So her dissertation topic is about creating a socially acceptable and usable brain-computer interface device for women. Personally, she is a fashionista and experience creator, a fashionista and experience creator. She's the co-owner of DHF Glam Beauty. That's what makes her geek and chic. She's a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and she comes across my timeline. She preaching, playing the keyboard, I think too. She just does it all. She does it all. So welcome, friends.
Oh man, thank you. That's hilarious.
Was
It's,
any of
it's
that a
a,
lie? It's a whole lot.
it's a very the first time I got an introduction like that. So hey,
Yeah, I think your face kind of tells it all. You looked very like surprised that she went that deep. I was
I need
surprised
one of those
myself.
buttons. When you're on the recording, they have that little the crowd button.
I was like, I'm gonna have fun with
Yeah,
this because I know a lot more about you than other guests that we have. So I was like,
that's
okay, we
funny.
can. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here with us. So you have all of these accolades, all this fun stuff that you do in computing. But when you were like young, was this something you thought you would be doing? Like, did you have any early influences that affected how you kind of got in this direction?
I do not think I was going to be doing this. When I was young, like elementary school young, I wanted to be a performer. So like I was in school plays. I was like the lead in different. Our elementary school did each grade level did a different play each year, and it was like their major production. And so I was the lead like 3 times in 3 different
Okay.
grades. We did high school. Oh, we did Schoolhouse Rock Live, like all those sorts of things. And
Aw.
so it was really fun. I used to think that I wanted to be an actress. Like I used to audition for like commercials and a lot of local things. One of my mentors, she has her own radio show and she had a television show. So I would be on there all the time as a guest and things like that. And so I had this whole performance communications type background, like being formally trained in public speaking and stuff like that. But when I was and then I played musical instruments. So that, like you
Oh,
alluded
wow.
to, so that all added to this idea of like singing, acting, performing.
We're
But when
the
I was in like,
same.
right? So that's where some of my, you guys personally know me. So, the bubblier side to my nerdiness comes from that type of background. And when I was in 6th grade, I decided, like, you know what? I just feel like, and this is a true story, I just feel like acting is not it's like not guaranteed, right? It's so fickle. You don't know if you're going to be successful. You don't know if you're going to book gigs. And I was like, I think I just need something that's more like stable. That was the word I thought. I need a more stable career that I know it's going to afford me the lifestyle that I'm accustomed to, and I want to build my own.
I'm just
The
laughing because
lifestyle I am accustomed to.
I'm
it's
telling you,
my
this is how I
story
thought
too.
in the
You
sixth
were younger
grade.
than me. You were younger than me,
Yeah, and
so
so
that's
I knew that I really enjoyed science and technology. I knew that I was always very curious. I wanted to like understand how things worked. I was taking apart the remote control and trying to put it back together. I loved Lego blocks and stuff like that. And so this idea of being an engineer and being able to make things popped out. You know, a lot of people obviously told me like, "Oh, you should be an engineer. You're good at math and science." And I'm grateful that people didn't look at me and see a girl and say, "Oh, girls don't do that." They nurtured that, and my family was
Right.
super nurturing of my interests. So once I told my grandparents and my parents that I was interested in that sort of thing, I was in science camps. I had all the little kits and all those things. Like they invested a lot of time and money into nurturing my interest in STEM. And so I went to the Challenger Learning Center. I would say is one of the pivotal experiences that I had in being interested in science and technology. You basically go for like a summer camp. You can go for a day trip and you go through these simulations where you're pretending to be an astronaut.
Oh,
And so either
wow.
you're in the spaceship or you're at like the coordinate, like Houston, we have a problem. The people that are
Oh, the
in
ground
the,
control.
the ground control, yes. So you alternate between being in those experiences, and it was just so cool to be able to do that. And then we did like side projects on the other days, like the rocket ship with the Alka Seltzer and baking soda and vinegar, like that sort of situation. So yeah, so just having experiences like that really kind of honed in on my desire as a kid to want to be interested. I didn't know I wanted to be an industrial engineer until college. So
I didn't
yeah,
know what an industrial engineer was until I got to college.
same. I didn't either. I definitely had the wrong perception. I didn't either. So yeah, that's another story. Do you want to answer that now? Something else?
I mean, we could go there. Yeah.
Okay, so let's say like sixth grade through high school, I knew I wanted to be an engineer. So I did a lot of things, just kind of focusing on that career path. I was set on that. I thought I wanted to go to Duke and I wanted to major in engineering. And
Very
then around
specific.
Oh man, y'all know me. I'm super goal oriented and I got a plan and what I'm
Mhm.
gonna do and I'm executing
And
against
her
that
plan got a
checklist.
plan, and that plan
Exactly.
has a
So
list.
bullets and don't
Right.
don't come in the way of my plan or we got friction.
Right.
So so yeah, basically in high school I went to like different camps. So I went to like governor school, which is like a 6-week program at College of Charleston, and it was super fun. It was beautiful, but College of Charleston is a liberal arts school. They don't have engineering degrees, so I knew I couldn't go there. Some of my friends did end up going there. And then the next week I went to Clemson for this career workshop and I was sold. Like walking around the campus, it was so beautiful. It just felt awesome. The food was good, the energy, the people were very embracing. Like you just felt the energy and I knew from that moment like, oh, I'm definitely going to Clemson, and it's a good school. Growing up, I grew up in Columbia, so I didn't even know Clemson was a good school, to be honest, because all we know is USC, Carolina Gamecocks, because that's what's
Mhm.
down the street. And
Mhm.
so one of my close friends, who was a couple of years older than I, he went to Clemson, and his mom is a teacher, his dad is a principal, and so I'm like, wow, if Jonathan went to Clemson, then it must be a good school. Maybe I should start looking at it and considering it. And then I started to look at it, and that's how I ended up going to that program that I was telling you about. And then I was super sold on it. And that's how I ended up at Clemson. When I got there, I know I want to be an engineer, but it was like anything but industrial or civil because I thought that industrial engineer,
Wow.
I know, right?
That's
I
where
thought
you two
industrial,
differ. This is where the roads
this is
part.
where our stories
Wow.
diverge. I thought industrial engineers only worked in factories and like plants and like hard hats and stuff like that. And
Makes
I
sense.
thought civil engineers had to be outside, and I don't really like to be outside, not for work. So that was literally it. That was the only reason. Looking back, I probably would have enjoyed architecture as a major, but that was why civil wasn't it. So your freshman year, you have to do what we call CES, Clemson Engineering and Science, and it's essentially like the introductory engineering class. And you do all this stuff; it's super hard. And then a part of it is to learn about the different disciplines. And they have professors from each of the disciplines come in, and then you pick 3 departments to take a tour of. So the industrial engineering professor came in, and he was talking about human factors and ergonomics and user-centered design and product design. And he at the time was like an expert witness for like error detection and things like that. Like the airlines were paying him
Mhm.
to come in and assess the human error and human
Ooh.
factors and all that type of stuff. And it just sounded
Wow.
so cool. I was like, well, I'm trying to be a part of that. Like, I'm trying to be a part of that. And he was talking about like how it brings in psychology and understanding of people and bringing it into engineering and all that. So I went on a tour of engineering department. It was cool. I met some cool people. And then I got involved in industrial engineering. We say in industrial engineering, we say engineers make things, industrial engineers make them better. And so I met Dr. Joel Greenstein, and that's when I really got into user-centered design and understanding how to make products with the end user in mind and the importance of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was set on. I was doing IE for a while, and then I met my advisor, Dr. Gilbert.
Oh, that's how this happened.
And then it was over.
Oh, okay.
And then the whole world shifted after that.
Okay,
And it was
wait.
very much so
I don't want to talk
happenstance.
about him yet. Okay, let's not talk about him
Yeah,
yet. Let's
right?
talk
Yeah, I was like,
about.
let's get to the spot.
I'm just thinking like. So we had a previous guest, Christina Gardner-McCune, come on here and tell us about how she wasn't a nerd
Mhm.
and like how everybody knew her and she was popular and she was a cheerleader and she was fabulous. So I'm just wondering, France, just because I feel like you and I are just so alike. Were you a nerd?
I've always embraced being smart. Obviously, like middle school is
That
something
sound
that
like a
people
yes.
like pick on you, like, oh, you talk white or da 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 da. And I tell people all the time, well, I get paid a lot of money to speak the way that I speak,
Oh,
so deal with
That
it.
part.
But I don't know. I think that in high school, obviously, I was the smart girl. Everybody knew me as being the smart girl, but I was also captain of the volleyball team, captain of the basketball team. I ran track. I was a principal dancer in the dance company. I was on the
yes,
orchestra. I was
honey.
Oh,
on
so
the
you was
concert
doing
band.
everything.
I was doing all type of things, and I was like voted most popular. So
This is what
like
I'm talking
her,
about. This
I
is
was
what I'm
very
talking
popular.
about.
And then the end,
I was
I was
This is
voted
what I'm
most
talking about.
popular.
I was
You see
student
how she
body
tried to sneak that
president.
in?
Yeah.
All right,
I
so I
actually
have
was nominated
found.
for most of the superlatives except for like class
See what I'm
You know,
count,
saying?
when
class
I was
clown, and
doing
some of the other
my
stuff.
intro, I was like, I feel like France is an extrovert, but you give introvert sometimes. So
I
what
think
are
I am
you?
an introverted extrovert. When I was younger, I was an extrovert. I was the type of person when I walk in, I'm gonna walk around the whole room. I'm gonna speak to everybody. I'm gonna shake hands, all that stuff.
Y'all
I'm
computer
networking,
scientists
and
ruined
I'm
her.
doing that. And
Y'all.
grad school ruined me. Like I'm burnt
Mhm.
out between growing up
Told you.
having to be so extroverted, between going to grad school and having to go to conferences and walk in a circle and say the same speech. I'm France. This is what I've studied. This is my research area. This is what my dissertation is
They took
about.
the fun out of talking.
Pretend to listen and care about whatever you're talking about that I have no idea about. So now I'm burnt out from that, and I would not consider myself an extrovert. I'm an
I am
extroverted introvert.
literally crying. Really.
I literally could see you in somebody's random conference room, ballroom, like I am France. Yes. What are you saying?
Nuh-uh,
Okay. That
no,
sounds
because
cool.
she has been formally trained as an
Yes.
actress,
No,
so
on the
she's
inside. That's
handling
what
it.
her voice is given
Oh,
on the
okay.
Oh
inside.
yeah.
Like on the
Or
outside
now
is definitely
Oh my
where I'm at now, like I might be standing in the corner, like eating whatever I wanted to eat, drinking whatever I wanted to drink, and then leaving unless somebody's like, "Friends, come meet this person." I'm like, "Hi, hey, yeah."
Hey, how's it going? Your intranet?
Now that for all the
Cool.
listeners, that
Oh
doesn't
my
mean
god.
if you see me in public, don't speak to me or I don't want to talk to you. Why did you say I give you introvert vibes?
Cause like you definitely mind your business. You keep it's not a whole lot of extraness when you're in the room. It's like I am here for this task. What's outside of that task? I'm not
That's at
entertaining
work
that.
though. I
So
feel like
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I feel like you give introvert, but you have a lot of extroverted characteristics. I was like, I'm not sure. She might be one of those, like you said, introverted extroverts or extroverted introvert. I was like, it's one of them two.
she's a Broderick.
Yes. Rod is
Yeah. Well,
definitely
also,
one.
if we're keeping it 100% honest, I mean, by the time we made it to Florida, I was just
He
so
was beat
ready
down.
to
Yeah.
go and graduate that I literally
Yes.
was, I'm here so I don't get fired, first of all, or fined or whatever. And I was just trying to get the things done. Like you said, minding my business, getting on my
Right.
checklist
I
and
got my
trying to get
list.
out. Yeah, but I think it's really funny because if someone who had met me in high school were to describe me, or even undergrad, they would not describe me in that way. They would describe me as extroverted, the life of the party, center of attention, even though I don't want the attention, but just
It just
like I'm the
finds you.
one
The
setting
attention
out the
finds
chants
you.
in college. I would be the one setting out the what is a Delta chant, like stuff like stuff like that. It's me. It used to be me.
And now you're just
But
in
It's
the
yeah,
still
corner.
there. It's still there. It's a
now
season. This is a season.
now I'm in my section drinking my drink and minding my business. That's
I
what
I
I'm
feel like
doing.
it comes with age too, because like I feel like at
Mhm.
least for me, I'm an extrovert, but as I've gotten older, I'm just like, I can leave. I'm good. I don't need to
I
talk
could
to
be binge
everyone.
watching something right now with
Right.
no shoes on under a blanket.
The
I know
no
that's
shoes
not what
part
you
is
really
very
wanted to say,
yes,
but
that's
we ain't
so
gonna say
important.
that on here.
Right. There's another part. It's also a
Right, it's
bit
a
of
good
laziness too. Just
it's
laziness.
called rest. Don't be trying to shame your rest. It is not lazy. Sometimes we just need
Mhm.
to rest. I read your whole intro, all that stuff you do when you need to rest.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
All right. So one thing that we all have in common is that we met a person named Juan Gilbert, and somehow he changed the trajectory of what we thought we were going to do. So you were
Swindled.
swindled, hoodwinked, bamboozled, whatever you want to
All of
call
it.
it,
All
all
of
of the
it.
above. But Franz, I haven't heard this from your perspective because you was in a whole nother major. So
Hmm.
how did this happen? And then you ended up in Florida, so in a different major in a different department at a whole nother state, whole nother school. How did this happen?
The Juan Gilbert. um, so I was doing undergraduate research between my junior and senior year,
Hold
and
on. Sorry to interrupt you. As soon as I Juan just texted me.
Oh my
oh,
god.
You see how he's like he's always here.
He's
So,
always
ever
watching.
present, ever present.
yes.
I know y'all talking to France. I can feel it. Anyways, um, yeah. So I was doing undergraduate research for LS Scamp program. I was doing undergraduate research between my junior and senior year, and we had to present it in the summer at Clemson University. So we go to Clemson University, we present our research, posters, and all that type of stuff. And the keynote speaker was Dr. Juan Gilbert. So I'm looking on the program, and I'm like, this guy teaches at Clemson? I've never seen him before. He's in the computer science department. Who is this man? So it was like a black man from my school that was in the computer science department that I had never heard of, never seen. And I thought that that was so crazy that I had to go to another school to meet him. So, being my extroverted self, I walked up to him and I introduced myself to him, said, hey, I really enjoyed your talk, about HCI and user experience, blah, blah, blah. I'm a student in the industrial engineering department. I study human factors. I think what you're talking about is cool. It sounds kind of similar, but I don't know a lot about it. And he's like, oh, you have a background in human factors, like set up some time with my assistant to come and talk to me, whatever. So we had a one-on-one meeting. The meeting went well, and he invited me to like participate with his lab. So I was still a senior at that time, but I would come to the lab meetings, kind of listen in on different projects and things like that. And then he extended me an offer to join his lab officially as a graduate student for my senior year. For graduate school.
Mhm.
So yeah, like I graduated, I don't know, May 12th or something like that. And 14th, I was in the lab and I was ready to go. And he basically just talked to me about how I could incorporate my human factors background with technology and, study user experience and still focus on user centered design and those type of things. And so that's how I got into computing with Dr. Gilbert explaining HCI and UX to me.
So did you feel like you had a hard transition into that area? Like, did you have much computing like experience before then? Or if you didn't, like, did you being
Mhm.
around a bunch of people who did, like, did that make you feel different?
I didn't feel like it was that hard of a transition. Maybe if I had to get a PhD in computer science purely without a concentration in HCC, it might have been a little more when you get into the nitty gritty of computing. But what I had to do and like coding and things like that, that wasn't foreign to me. We learned some basic, like Visual Basic and things like that. So the idea of understanding logic and how the basics of coding, I already knew those things. I just needed to learn the syntax of the languages for the classes that I was taking. And
Mhm.
computer science, computer engineering was another possible major that I was interested in. when I was going into college. So I was always interested in computers and the MySpace pages and all that stuff. I
Oh
was
yeah.
listening to Danae's interview and you guys were talking about that. So I was totally into the HTML and tinkering with it. And I thought it was super cool. So if anything, I was excited about learning more and being more exposed to computing. So yeah.
It's
So
such
you
an interesting intersection of the
yes.
disciplines, and I think a lot of people don't realize that that could exist, right? They
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily find that particular space, and we talk about it. I teach a class, it's like a intro to design course,
Mm-hmm.
and I think one of the things that's really important for people to understand is, like, everything an engineer does ultimately impacts human life.
Yeah.
Right? And, like, we play such a fundamental role in a lot of the technologies and innovations that people see, but we don't often consider the individuals we're designing for in the
Mm-hmm.
process, and so I can see how that would be really appealing to someone who, like, likes people. Um,
Yep.
Or pretends to like people
or
now.
pretends, yeah.
Yeah.
But back then I did.
Yeah, yeah, like, to be like, "Oh, I can talk to people and figure out what interests them and, like, try to make what I'm creating better fit them and their
Yeah.
needs." Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I think of
cool.
our job as being problem solvers. Like as an engineer, that's always been the purpose or the goal. And I really don't like to work on things that don't fix the problem. Like if I
Mhm,
don't like the idea of making something cool just because you think it's cool or because you have the capability. Like I want to know, how is this helping people? What problem is this solving? Is there a real world need for this? Or else I'm kind of like, that's
mhm.
nice.
Yeah, because
So
that's the motivation that gets you, out of the bed in the morning when it's time to work on it and something's not working. It's like, well, I need to solve this because I am solving X problem for the world so I can get over this random hurdle that's happening
yeah.
today.
And that's what I really liked about Dr. Gilbert's lab. We had that huge banner. It's like change the world. And that's what the goal is every day. You know what I mean? Like we're trying to figure out how we can change the world and have an impact or influence somebody who will. And I like that. Uh, having a large impact because it's kind of like using our skills for good.
Mhm,
Yes.
mhm.
Absolutely. Okay, so you're in Juan's lab, you're at
Me
Clemson, you're what?
I just wait, okay, yeah, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
No, we can okay,
No,
I'll
go
jump
ahead,
right
go ahead.
up.
No, it's fine.
Ooh, I feel special. There's a lot of questions.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I was saying you're in Juan's lab and you're doing your work, you have a project, you're a PhD student, everything was easy. You had a good, introduction in and what nothing was
She's
foreign
like,
to you.
easy,
And
but
then,
okay, keep going.
and then all of a sudden you end up in Florida. So what was
Hmm.
that like? That whole because I know what it was like on my side. Because I knew a whole month before y'all did. And y'all be in my office like, I'm a this, I'm a that. I'm like, they don't even know. They don't even know where
Well,
we talking from.
it was a lot because I think my story was a little different from some other people's stories. It was kind of unique. I did know that Dr. Gilbert went on a trip to Florida because I saw it on his calendar, and so we knew that. Like people, several of us saw that,
But
and
he
I
goes
knew like,
everywhere. He
yeah,
goes on
but
a lot
not
of
the way
trips
he
to a
went to
lot of
Florida.
places.
The Florida trip it stood out and it was different from the way he typically goes to other places. And we don't want to talk about it on the podcast, but we kind of knew the atmosphere of what was going on at that time. And so we saw that on the calendar. I was like, okay, we knew he was looking at places. We're close to our advisor, so he told us certain things. Like we knew he was looking at certain places and things like that. But as far as him officially telling us, it was pretty much like, "Yep, I'm going to Florida. You're welcome to come. You got to decide for yourself if you want to come, but just keep in mind that if you're not graduating by December, then you'll have to get a new advisor because they're not going to let me be." They're not going to let me be your advisor on your committee. So it's just kind of like, what the world? We have to pick up our whole life and move to another state, to another school. And for me, I had already had my dissertation plan. So I was pretty much ABD at that point. I
Yeah.
just needed to propose and do my dissertation. That was it. And in my head, I was engaged at the time. So I was supposed to be getting married like June of that year. This is March when he told us I was supposed to get married in
Right.
June. And I had gotten engaged in 2012. And I told my fiance, hey, well, I don't want to get married until I'm done with my PhD or almost done with my PhD. So we didn't set a date at first. And then once I saw like my plan and my schedule and how things are going, I said, okay, well, 2014, I'll be ABD. So I'll be able to just, I'll be done with classes. I'll be done with qualifying, stuff like that. I'll just need to be doing my dissertation. So if we want to get married in 2014, I'm cool with that. So that was our whole plan. I did not expect for my advisor to come in and be like, yeah, well, we're going to another school. I was not graduated by December, and I just felt like it was not worth it for me to put this much work into school and all the things that I had done to just kind of potentially mess myself up by staying at Clemson. One, I need to follow the money. Two, I need to go with my advisor because this is the person that I'm working hand in hand with. I don't want to have to build rapport with a new person that I don't even know if there was going to be drama or what the dynamic was going to be because he left. Are you going to treat me differently because I was one of Juan's students? So I was just like, I don't want to deal with that. And both of my other degrees were from Clemson. So I said, well, this will be an opportunity for me to diversify my CV and go to a school that's higher ranked. Like Florida's a great school, and we got an opportunity to go. It'd be crazy for me not to go. I'll figure out the personal life stuff, but that's kind of how my head was back then. Like it was all set on that goal of getting my PhD, and everything else was up for debate or figure it out. So yeah, I ended up deciding to go to Florida. And as we made that decision, more and more things became clear. Like, oh, you're going to have to take some classes. Okay. And you're going to have to do your qualifying exam and you're going to have to do this and that. And it was like, oh my God, I got to go back to being a super student.
Right.
I'm
I was
not
done
ready to
with
be
this.
nobody's wife. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I ain't ready to be nobody's wife if I got to do all these things. So I told my fiance I thought we should postpone the wedding, and he did not agree. And so he said if we weren't getting married on whatever, June 7th, I think, if we weren't getting married on that day, then he wasn't going to be happy. And he said that I was selfish and I put my personal goals before our goals and just all the things, child. So we broke up, and then I came to Florida and got my PhD and made history. So
I'm just saying.
so there's that. There's that. Now, the transition into computer science wasn't hard, but the transition to UF was hard.
Because a lot of people, they go through their PhD program and they're like, oh, I'm going to be at this one school forever, but you have no idea what your advisor's plans are. So like because I know what my transition was like, but I came from a school that was very much like UF. So to me, I was like, okay, I'm returning to familiarity. But for you, it was like, oh, what is this?
Yeah, it's way bigger.
It's way bigger. It's way bigger. And it was just like the size was cool. It didn't bother me, but it was all the things that were like the butterfly effect of the size, like all the things that it affected, the way in which we had to do paperwork and the way in which we had like all these extra little things that we had to do that we didn't have to do at Clemson, that was way smoother, way easier. But it's because the school is so much larger. There's so many people that they have to deal with, so many projects and things like that. So to me, it just felt like a hassle of all this extra stuff, but it served a purpose. It's just that we had to get used to that. Even with IRB, like IRB at Clemson was so easy.
What's
but when
IRB, France?
You tell us. What's
No,
IRB?
you the guest.
It's the Institutional Review Board.
Review Board.
Yes, for everybody who doesn't know. Yes.
And you have to submit anything that involves human subjects to them to ensure that you will not cause harm.
Even a survey. It's like, if you're going to be traumatized by this survey.
And it serves a purpose for sure. But at Clemson, it was pretty easy to, it's annoying and aggravating everywhere, no matter where it is. But it was easier than when we got to
it was harder at Clemson.
No, at
it was
UF,
paper. It was paper. Okay,
well that's
I could
true.
submit an IRB on the weekend in my drawers if I wanted to.
Kyla,
that's fair. That is fair. It was a better system, but it was so much longer and so much more questions because you have a med school. You got people submit IRBs that are literally probing on people's brains, people working with fetuses and pregnant women and different high risk populations that we didn't have to deal with at Clemson. So it just changed everything.
Yeah, there's definitely different levels of IRB process.
Yeah.
Processes.
Yeah, I
That was
wasn't used
sad.
to one that wasn't electronic. I was like, "What are y'all doing?"
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair for
Mm.
sure.
But like you still had community though, because when Juan left, I like to call it the Great Migration. He brought like a,
Oh
a,
yeah,
Like 20 students,
a
right?
bunch of y'all. It
absolutely. The
literally like
community was the same.
it doubled the diversity
For all the
in the
listeners,
college.
just imagine, a typical PWI in the South that just gets this influx of Black faculty and PhD students that just show up on the doorstep one day. Like, we live here. So think about all of the drama that could go
And we're
along with
building a
that.
lab. We're building a cool
Yes.
lab.
A cool lab, not just a lab.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we built a cool lab. So, I don't know.
No, it was great. I was happy y'all had, we had, all the community. There were familiar faces, familiar people. Did your topic change? I'm curious.
Yeah, it did change. I was still, my research has always been kind of at the cross section of technology and popular culture. So, think I've always been interested in like fashion, media, gaming, things like that. And so before I can't even remember what I was doing. I remember I was doing some type of recommendation system that had to do with like retail experiences.
I remember that.
Um,
Okay. I was like, I knew you were
but
doing something else, but I couldn't
this is like
remember.
a decade ago. Oh my God,
Right.
so long ago. So it switched up a little bit. It took me a while to kind of come back around to BCI. I was working so heavily with Chris and Barvin, it just made sense to pick something in BCI. And then it ended up being something that I was passionate about. Um,
What's
because I think
BCI
I'm
for
brain
everyone who
computer
hasn't heard of
interface devices.
it?
Yes,
So they literally over here with devices that you can put on your head and use your brain waves to control them. And she's like glossing over it, like it's nothing. It's a calculator. Like she's literally just
Ah,
glossing over this whole
Not a
this
calculator.
whole thing. Uh, I mean, I love it. I love the fact
me.
you're just like it's PCI, whatever.
It was my dissertation was important to me because when we were at Clemson is when we first started like kind of doing BCI. I worked on a distracted driving project with a couple people and things like that. And at that time we were using the emotive epoch, and this device literally looks like a spider on your head, and it does, and it has
It's like
felt pads that have to touch your scalp and they have to be wet. So, like you were alluding to earlier, our lab at the time was the largest contingency of Black PhD students in computer science in the country, and half of them were women. So, we're talking about half of our lab are Black women. We're trying to study BCI, and we can't even use our lab mates to participate in our studies. I can't even participate in my own study half the time, depending on how my hair is styled, because the device was not intended for me to use. I was
yeah.
never thought about as the
Mhm.
end user of this device. And so I thought it was important to solve that real world problem and figure out if there are other ways that we could design these devices that they'd be more inclusive for people like myself, women in general, and then beyond increasing the usability, this idea that people would actually want to wear them and they would be more socially acceptable, seen as wearable devices like your Apple Watch or similar, the Fitbit, that sort of thing, because we were working on new ways to benefit from reading your EEG waves and how that could have implications on your everyday life.
We might need to talk because I'm on this path towards a tenure track faculty position. And I remember your study, right? And like the work that you were doing. And I got to do like some of the pilot stuff for her. And you know, I
That was
love
part
my
of your indoctrination.
I know. They sucked me in, y'all. Like this is how I became
We
a fake
did.
computer scientist. And so I just like I don't know, like I think it's really cool work and I think it's something that could be leveraged to really understand people's like emotional or physical state in really difficult scenarios, like just
Hmm.
taking engineering tests for example or dealing with things like I can't speak on it. I can't say all the things because if I say all the things, then somebody might be like, "Oh, I listened to her
They might
podcast.
try
I'm
to
gonna do."
scoop it.
Right. This is about to
Yeah.
be an NSF proposal that I might submit. So I'm gonna talk to
Oh,
you, friends,
nice.
offline. Let's figure it out because I really
Fact.
like. It's in the startup package. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. Okay. I'm down.
But it's because of
I'm down.
you. It's because of just that like one interaction that made me think like, oh, this could be something that would be really valuable to understand. Like, do I have the background to be able to do that? No. But I know a
Well,
friend.
that's why you could get students. That's what they're
Yep,
for.
Exactly.
The students
exactly.
make the work happen. The secret
Exactly.
to
Secret to
academia.
success.
You
Great
were giving
student.
away all of our secrets. People are like, oh, you do awesome research. I'm like, no, you see them 5 people that sit down in my lab?
The
They make
research I
me
do
look
is on
cool.
finding the right students. I do the
That
research,
part.
That's
recruiting.
Yep.
real research. That's
Right. I
real.
send emails and manage humans. That's what I do. I know the
Yep.
research, but there's so little of the research that I can
And
actually
edit the
do.
paper.
I
Edit the
just like
paper.
she had like all these really cute like visuals too that went along with her PhD that like I don't you don't see stuff like that, right?
Right.
Like where it's like, look at
Had to
this
make it
girl and
cute.
her hair and
Yeah,
what
I
do you
had this
think?
as a question for later, but it's relevant now. Like, how do you balance like staying true to who you are and the things that you like and trying to like
Hmm.
fit into a computing world? Because computer science is not glamorous. It is not,
Yeah.
beautifully aesthetic.
I think that's the part. I don't try to fit. I only try to be
Mm,
myself. And I just make a lane for myself. Like Jeremy said, I came in there with mood boards. I'm like, Dr. Gilbert, I need to get this 3 foot, 5 foot styrofoam board. He's like, why do you need that? Because this is what I need to make my mood board so everybody can see it in my focus group. I need these mirrors so people can see themselves. And like
mhm,
I had like these things that I printed off that were my design ideas and just pulling inspiration from the way things happen in fashion and the way they happen in design centered cultures, because that's what I'm interested in and that's what drives me. And that was kind of the whole point of the dissertation, is to bring those things to technology. Instead of designing a device, another wearable device, I wanted to make a head accessory a wearable, an existing thing that we already wear on our head. How do we add technology to those things? And even with like my Instagram, like you were talking about earlier, Geek and Chic, like that is who I am. I'm very much a nerd. I'm very much a geek, but I'm also gonna come with the fashion. Like I'm gonna
Yes.
come with the cool stuff. And I don't know. I think a part of that is goes into my efforts for STEM outreach. Like I think I have to be myself in order to try to get more people that look like me interested in this space. It's not going to serve them or me to try to pretend or fit into a mold. So I just be
mhm.
doing my own thing, to be honest. I've always kind of been that way, like just doing my own thing. Like I don't necessarily have to break the rules all the way. I might bend them, but I'm trying to create new ones, and I definitely am challenging the ones that don't make sense.
That's
Love it.
legit.
I think we can break right there.
All right. So I know like as a student, there's all these different things like kind of pulling you different directions. Like you want to be excellent in your coursework, but then you have all this research stuff. But in computer science, it's really common that you do internships to try to like figure out your place. And you did
Mhm.
a bunch.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like Clemson is pretty in engineering, it's pretty common and expected almost that you do an internship, and it makes it a lot easier to get a job. But I didn't do
Mhm.
any internships in undergrad, but I did do research because I
Wow.
knew that I wanted to go to graduate school. So
Mhm.
I didn't know what type of engineer I wanted to be, but I always knew I wanted to get a PhD and I wanted to go to graduate school. And so when I was an undergrad, I figured out that it would be more important or more beneficial to do undergraduate research. So then once I got to graduate school, I didn't realize at first that people had PhDs in industry. I thought that if you got a
Mhm.
PhD, it was to become a professor or some type of research scientist.
But you ain't a
Uh,
professor? I
That's
was
what she
like,
thought.
that's what I thought.
okay. Let me just
It wasn't
okay, keep
until
going.
Yeah.
I definitely ain't a professor. It wasn't until I did my internship or until I got into grad school and then started to learn more things. I was very like ignorant to all the opportunities or paths that you could go down. And so I think when Intel came and we were talking about doing internships and different people having PhDs and all that type of stuff, I was like, oh wow, like that's a thing to do. Yeah, I'll try that. I'll check that out. Like that seems cool. And I thought that it was okay because I had already I made it a point to start doing research my first summer out of undergrad. So my
Mm.
first summer out of undergrad, I figured out who was working on something that was going to terminate in a paper and something useful. And I got on that and figured out how I could help. And that turned into a journal article, a conference paper, like
That's a
all
cheat
these
move.
things.
That's the cheat code right there.
Cheat code for real. That's the cheat code. Like, especially when you're in a lab like ours, you got to figure out who the people are that you need to align yourself with, especially early on when you are a rookie and you don't really know anything, or you don't even know what IRB is, like you don't know the ins and outs. Figuring out who to align yourself with is a whole skill. So anyways, I did my first internship at Intel. I mean, there's a whole story about Genevieve Bell, wanting to
We're here
increase
for
the
it. Tell us the
diversity.
story.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
there's this person, Genevieve Bell. She's actually an Intel fellow, and she used to be over IXR, like Intel Experience Research Group, which was within Intel Labs, and that's the research
Okay.
arm at Intel. And so she wanted to increase the diversity within her organization. She learned about Dr. Gilbert, realized that he had all these Black PhD students who were studying HCI, who had UX experience and things like that. So they met, they had a meeting, whatever. He invited her to Clemson. So they came, Intel IXR lab came with like 13 people. Their ops manager
Whoa.
came, all these people from Intel. We had like a whole research week pretty much where we were doing lab tours, we were doing
demos, everything.
demos, we were doing
Wow.
posters, all this stuff. We took them to a football game. We had a box at Clemson, which we did
Yes,
on
one
that
had a
Florida,
box with
but
Let's
we
not
had
talk about it.
but we
Let's
did have a box at Clemson. And
yes.
so we took them to the box and we had all this is a great experience. And so at the end of the week, they kind of got back with us and picked about 6 people or so to come and do internships based on all the stuff that we had showed them. And I got picked to be one of the people. This is the end of my first year of graduate school. And I was super shocked because I'm like, there's mad like
There are
higher,
computer
like more
scientists.
senior people
Right.
in
Yeah.
this program that are computer scientists. Like, y'all picked me? Okay,
It ain't
well,
fair.
I'm gonna come and do my thug thistle and see what happens. You know what I'm saying? So so then I went and I did my first internship, and they wanted me to do I actually didn't even work in IXR. I became a part of this Intel Collaborators program, which was an internship program where they brought together a multidisciplinary team. So it was like engineering students that had different majors and backgrounds, and they were like kind of working on and solving different problems. And so I was like the human factors engineer type thing on the program. On this particular project, I ended up kind of leading the team. And so that was my first internship. We were working on like personas and things like that for assistive driving and automotive solutions. And then the next summer came around and it was kind of like, hey, we got another UX project. These are the UX projects that we have. Which one would you like to do? And I was like, oh, well, I think that one's cool. So then that was the one that I ended up working on. That second year, we were doing like new forms of media consumption. We were looking at like interactive 3D media environments where people could like learn new things, or maybe we were talking with like Oregonian and like recording like a soccer game and having it on the website and people being able to like move around in space and stuff like that.
It's like
Uh,
meta before meta.
like meta before meta. A lot of the stuff that I was working on, it was like a couple years down the line.
Mhm,
So that
mhm.
was my second internship. And that was actually on the team that I started my Intel career, starting working there full time. So that was my
Aw.
second internship. And then my third internship, similar, rolled around, hey, these are the UX projects. Because all this is in the Intel Collaborators program. So once I came in the first time and I did well, I just stayed in contact with the leader of the program. So she would reach back out to me every year, like, we want you to come back,
Try to
whatever,
come.
whatever. And so, yeah, I worked in Intel Labs that third summer, and we were doing like we were trying to find usages for camera array technology. So before RealSense cameras were a thing, we were trying to figure out what would be usages for large scale camera array technology. So that was a very fun internship. Like we took trips to like San Francisco, the Presidio, and all these different areas trying to scout locations for a concept video that I decided to shoot. I was like, oh, we should shoot a concept video, and that'll be like what we present at the end of the summer. And so we found these different locations. I wrote the script. We shot the video. It was really cool. And it essentially was about using camera ray technology and how it could empower a uh, wedding planner to show a bride and groom what the space could look like using AR and bringing
Mm,
different things into the scene, like the chairs and all that type of stuff, changing whether it's night and day and
Oh,
that type
that's
of stuff. And
cool.
that's what our concept video was about. And then a few months later, there was a commercial with David Parsons, an Intel commercial showcasing Real Sense, and that was the scenario. And I was like, that looks really familiar to me.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. I don't know if they ever saw my concept
Wow.
video or not, but it was very so whether or not they saw it, I don't care. I just felt good
They
that what
what?
saw
I
it.
thought was a good idea, the Intel marketing department also thought was a good idea. And
Apparently.
so that was pretty dope.
That's cool.
They owe you
That's
some
really
royalties,
cool.
child. You better put that on something.
Yeah.
I mean, she worked
Yeah.
there now, so she probably signed
Or
something that said, "Yep, that's your idea now."
right. It's too late now. But yeah. And then I did a fourth internship and
But she
that
can
one
still put
probably
it on her
was
Yeah, she can
CV.
tell, definitely, definitely. And
That's in
France,
the
one
acting
one thing
section.
I admire about like your path with your internships, especially specifically with Intel, is that I felt like it gave you a lot of agency over
Mhm.
what you concentrated on in your
hmm
PhD. Like you got to say, "Hey, I'm doing this," and it wasn't something that was mandated to you. Like, because didn't they fund like part of your PhD?
Yeah, so that was another thing I was about to say. I had agency because I had money, but so I had I'm a Bill and Melinda Gates scholar, so I had that in undergrad and graduate school. So that was kind of like baseline. Then I had SRAB when we were in Clemson, but Florida's not SRAB school. And then there was another fellowship. When I got to Florida, I think I got the graduate research fellowship, that one of the ones that they give away. But as I was an intern at Intel, someone recommended that I get the GEM fellowship. So then I got the
Mhm.
GEM fellowship through Intel. But my fourth internship is what I was saying. During my fourth internship, I was a part of the engineering leadership program. And that year was a crazy year for us because all my other internships have been with the collaborators program, but this year they had this engineering leadership program where they were bringing in all of these PhDs from around the world, around the country, to come in and solve these problems that the executives had picked. So like the CEO and his VPs and their level, they had figured out these are the next kind of problems that as a company we want to solve, and we want to put these people on these interdisciplinary teams. It was essentially it's just like collaborators, but for people with PhDs. And this wasn't an internship, this was their job. And they had to come and do all this vetting and these in person interviews for several days and all this craziness. But for me, the person who was over the program, several people had told her that she should meet me. Like, have you met Franz Jackson? Have you met Franz Jackson? You need to meet her. She wants to be in the rotation engineering program. Now that you're changing it to the engineering leadership program, you need to consider her as a candidate, all this type of stuff. So on one of the recruiting trips, she came to Florida with the purpose of meeting me. So she
Wow.
came and she's like, I keep hearing so much about you. I need to sit down and meet with you. So she like took me to dinner. We talked. I talked about my research, talked about things I had done in Intel, the things I had done in school. And she was like, I'm going to open up an internship position for you. And this program is not supposed to have an intern. Like I just told you, it's supposed to be for people with PhDs solving these big problems over a set amount of time. And she's like, well, we want you to come for 3 months and be an intern in the program. And I'm going to open up a spot and figure it out. And then I ended up getting put on 2 projects, so it was very crazy. But during that summer, I got to design the Intel Bitcoin wallet. That was my primary project, and so that got presented to the CEO at the time, and he gave the group like $5 million to go off and try to explore it more and build it based off the designs that I made. But that wasn't done until the fall, so I wasn't there when they presented the work.
You
But
better do it.
we got bonuses from doing a good job. I was just
Okay.
Oh,
I was minding my
she got
business, sitting at
money.
my desk, and I just got like a $5,000 random check, and that was my bonus. I was like,
Okay.
"Oh, I'm balling." I'm in grad school. I'm sure the other people
Yes.
got way
Yes.
more, but I was very happy for my money. But also that summer, my work got presented to the CEO a second time because Marvin Andujar and Chris Crawford, they met one of the VPs at the time, Richard Taylor, and he was so enamored with the BCI research that they were talking about in the brain drone race. And he was like, oh, BK's got to see this. Y'all got to show this to BK. So we ended up getting a time to meet with the CEO to talk to him about brain drone race, to talk to him about our individual goals
You
and
need to tell people what the
plans for
brain drone race
BCI.
is, though. You have to say what that
We'll
is.
go back there. We'll go
Yeah.
back there.
Okay.
And he liked it. So like we were super prepared. We had met with different people and I haven't talked a lot about my mentors and things like that, but like one of my mentors, she was like a TA, so she interfaced a lot with executives, a lot with BK at the time. He was the CEO of Intel, and she just gave us pointers on what he might want to see, what he would be interested in, the language that we needed to use, all these things. And so we were really prepared. We made sure the technology worked. Like we were staying up late the whole week before. And we put our proposal together. We had an ask at the end of it, like, what do we need? What we're going to use it for? All this stuff. We had no idea if he was going to give us money or not, but we were just prepared. So when we got to the end, he was like, I like what these kids are doing. Give them whatever they want. Give them whatever they need.
Wow.
And so they were like, well, what do y'all need? Well, now that you mention it, we need $300,000, and this is how we're going to spend it to fund the rest of our PhD, for equipment, for this, for that, for our studies or whatever. And so we got $300,000 from BK to fund our graduate research, pretty much our dissertation research, and to
That's
fund
unheard of, France. I just need you to know this.
Jeremy's face is cracking.
For those of you who are just listening, Jeremy she's over it, right? She's turned away from.
Is that your first time hearing that, Jeremy?
Yes.
She doesn't know the story.
Oh,
and this is my first time hearing it in that much detail. Like I knew y'all impressed the folks at Intel and they gave y'all money. I didn't realize all the other parts.
We worked our butt off. Like the drone, we had to get our lab mates thankful for them. They shipped us the drones and the computers and the equipment that we needed to be able to do the demo. Like we're so grateful for them. Like they had to pack it up, they had to take it to FedEx, ship it to us across the country because we were in Santa Clara, California. They shipped it to us in a timely manner, and like, you know, that part of the story doesn't get told, but if it wasn't for them shipping us that stuff, we wouldn't even been able to do it. So they shipped it to us. And when I tell you, we were at work till like 11, 12 o'clock at night, the whole week leading up to that, because we were not playing. Like,
no, I'm regular. That's all I know. Like
our lab mates call us the Cali crew. And
y'all
Cali
were
crew
the
is
Cali
just built
crew
different. Like
they went to California and just decided they were too good for everyone. No, I'm kidding.
Wow.
I'm kidding.
No, so yeah, that's the story.
Is it you never hear about PhD students doing this? Like this, we hear a whole lot of stories here. Like this is going to be episode 40 something. And in our 40 something episodes, we have never heard anything like this.
I presented something to like a Fortune 50 company.
Right. And he said give them what they want.
Yeah.
I got so many questions. I can't get into this. Okay, we can't get into. Let's go back. So brain drone race.
Yeah, the brain drone.
Oh, you want to go back to brain drone?
Yeah, because I can't. My brain is gonna go too far with the
I can't take credit for the inception of the idea. Marvin and Chris, who I spoke about earlier, they literally were, when they tell the story, they were in the mall in Tampa or somewhere, and they saw some drones in the middle of the mall. And Marvin this is like the marriage of the perfect group of people when we talk about Cali crew. So Marvin's focus has been BCI. It feels like his entire life. It almost feels like he was just born knowing, understanding, and being interested in brain computer interface devices. And so he was like the BCI expert. Chris came to us as a human robot interaction person. Like that was his undergraduate research. That was his interest.
Alabama.
He was a roboticist. And so they were like, oh, it would be so cool if you could use BCI to control the drones. And it was just an idea. This is when we were at Clemson. And so then they got super focused on figuring out how to map those EEG waves to forward motion in the application that drives the drones. And then it wasn't a race. It wasn't anything. It was just a research to figure out if we could do this thing. And I wasn't super involved. I was just in the lab doing some BCI stuff and whatever, but I wasn't like very helpful at this stage.
But you knew who to align yourself with, though.
I knew who to align myself with. And so Marvin, like you got sucked in. I got sucked into all this BCI stuff. And Marvin's like, well, you know, BCI is a wearable and you're interested in wearable. So I think you should just come on over and work on the BCI stuff with us. And I'm like, That thing ain't no wearable, first of all. I'm like, show me a different one or something, because it's not given. It's not given. And then eventually I was like, okay, yeah, this is kind of cool. And then like the different things that you can do with it and how you can benefit from it, like relaxation, meditation, measuring your focus, all those types of things became very interesting. So by the time we got to Florida, we are like, dang, let's do a brain drone race where we have people race drones using the BCI devices to control them. And so we planned this huge event that was an immense amount of work. And this is on top of being PhD students. This is on top of our research, on top of classes, and on top of interning, because we were all interning as well during this time. So we had a whole lot going on, but we had money to figure out how to get it done. And from that, we had the world's first ever brain drone race at the University of Florida. I think that was I don't know, what year was that? 2016?
Yeah.
That sounds
15
right.
or 16, something like that.
Such a blur. So, yeah.
And it was phenomenal. It was really good. There's so many like pictures, so much news coverage from it. Like when you think of I'm a fly something with something I'm thinking, like
Florida still
I was
uses
good at it.
pictures
That's
from
all I
that.
know. That's all I'm gonna say. Like my brain waves, we on point, okay?
Your
Like
brain waves be waving.
they do.
Hey, that's it. That's it.
Have y'all ever flown a drone with your brains, listeners? No? Okay, maybe you should come to Florida. That's all I got to say. And that's that on that.
Period.
I think they're like they've turned into
They
like a
turned to a league.
and all
So
type
you
of
can
things.
also
So.
okay, fine. You can go to the University of South Florida and the University of Alabama.
But also the people who created it, though, what are their origins?
That's where they are.
For that. So
That's where they are. Wow. I can't get over this. Y'all just walked up to the CEO and was like, "Give me some money."
We let
And he
him
was
do it
like,
too. He got
"Whatever
to
you
fly
want."
the drone and everything. And he was so into it. But at the time, Intel, he was passionate about drones and figuring out what we could do with drones and how Intel could like enlarge their footprint in that area. Like we had drone shows at the Olympics and all type of things. And so that's why he was willing to invest so much in the space. So yeah.
That's cool.
That is cool. Franz, you're too cool for us.
No, she's not. Okay, she's exactly the right amount of cool.
Yeah, she's exactly the right amount.
I'm just trying to be like one of the little tiles in her Instagram profile because her life is fabulous and I just want to be a part of it. I think you do a good job at like showing people what life can be like if you achieve your goals and your dreams. And I think I love that about you, that you don't like put it in people's face like, oh, I'm flaunting this. Like I have access to and can do X, Y, and Z. It's more so like, look at me living my life.
Right. This is Tuesday. Bloop.
Well, for me, I'm so glad that you said that too, Jeremy, because that's the goal. Like, I'm not interested in bragging, first of all, and I'm definitely not interested in just like flexing. That's not of interest to me. But I do want to show people that if you work hard, you can have anything that you want. You don't have to be a drug dealer to have money. You don't have to date a scammer to have nice things and go on trips, those type of things. And I think, it's constantly a reminder, particularly to the people that are from where I'm from, that, hey, we're from the same place. We have most of the same resources. And if I can do this, then you can do it too. Whether it's people that are my peers or younger people that look up to me. Like when I go home, people always say, man, I see what you're doing. I'm proud of you. You representing. I see what you're doing. I'm proud of you. And that's my goal. Like I want to get more people to where I am. And if I want to do that, I got to make where I'm at look appealing so that people want to be there and do those things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's real. I don't got time.
I was at a conference with Roland Martin and he was like, y'all computer scientists, y'all over here talking about how we get more Black people in computing. You need to make it look sexy. Make computer science look sexy.
He's not lying.
Show your cars. Show this, show that. It's like,
show your cars.
It's so many misconceptions. And I think all of us kind of work in that or are passionate about that space of breaking those stereotypes and the misconception of what it looks like to be in computing, what it looks like to be a computer scientist or an engineer or in technology. I think that's important. I was talking to my sister one day and she said something about like off days, like PTO. And I was like, well, I think there's a set number of PTO that I have, but nobody counts my off days. So if I just turn my calendar purple and say I'm off. and I'm off. like, like nobody's counting, right? Unless you work in the fab, in which case you have to be in that spot to do that job. But
Yeah.
a lot of tech companies have an infinite PTO. And she was like, what? And this was a conversation we had like 2 months ago. She was like, she had no idea that that was a thing. And up to me, I'm like, how do you not know that's a thing? Most of my friends have infinite PTO. Like, what do you
Right.
mean? But she just didn't know. And I'm her sister. So imagine what other people who barely even know anybody who works in tech, imagine what their mind is privy to, and they know. Someone asked me last week, they text me, it was like, hey, this is random, but people working in tech really make $40 an hour and up. And I had to go do a translation of
Do
what
some
$40
math.
an hour
Yeah.
equal to the salary, because my mind don't think in per hour terms. And then when I looked at it, I was like, yeah, that's what I was making as an intern. But
Boop.
and it wasn't in a braggy way. It was just like in an answer your question, like, yeah,
For
definitely more.
sure.
Once I saw, I
Yeah.
was like, definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just the idea that there's so many things that people just don't know and don't have access to. And nobody gonna tell them if we don't.
Yeah, I feel like the higher you go, the less, I don't want to say accountability, but the less people are checking for you. It's more so about what you produce versus how long you were sitting in a chair.
Oh
So,
yeah, for
Mm.
sure. For sure. And like even for my job, like as a, well, working in technology in general, there are very little set hours. But for me, first of all, I work with people all over the world. So there are days when I have meetings at 7 o'clock in the morning and days when I have meetings at 7 o'clock at night, sometimes on the same day. So
oof,
if I'm working a span of 12 hours on Wednesday, I'm not working on Friday, or I'm working very minimally on Friday,
right.
or it's hard for you to tell me that I have to work 9 to 5 when I have several meetings that are outside of those regular business hours. And so they don't want to tell you the set business hours because you're needed to work outside of those hours. And even as a UX researcher, I have to engage with people outside of the company on their time. So if
Yep.
I'm doing ethnographic research, I'm going into people's homes and things like that. That's not necessarily happening 9 to 5 because that's not necessarily when they're available. So
No,
I
it's
work
not.
varying hours every day. But
Yeah.
like you said, it's more about achieving the goal and the deliverable.
So
Absolutely.
beautiful. So good. I love this. I'm just so happy. So, okay, what do you do for fun so people can know that you live a life? Because you live a life, child.
Right. A whole life.
Uh, people used to ask me that in grad school, and I used to laugh like I don't do nothing for fun. Going to conferences and figuring out how I can stay an extra 2 days is
That's
my
different.
ideal
Wow.
fun.
Okay.
So
Wow.
then when I got out of graduate school, it was like, dang, what do I do for fun? I could do some things now. Let me think about it. I don't even know what I like to do anymore. Let me figure it out. I like to rest for fun, to be honest. I work a lot.
Ooh.
So
Mhm.
sometimes literally just sitting on my couch, binge
Mm.
watching a TV show that I like is my absolute idea of fun. Like I don't want to think about nothing. I don't want to do nothing. I want my brain to work. I just want to chill. That's a lot of times my idea of fun. But I do like sports. I travel pre-COVID. I find myself going home a lot. I should not. I should go home a lot less and go other places a lot more. But I spend a lot of time going to
No.
South Carolina because I
That's
be
good
having to check on
though.
my grandma and all the things.
Yeah.
So yeah, and community service. I do a lot of community service,
Like what? Like what do you do?
like
With your
STEM
sorority?
outreach. Sometimes with the sorority, but a lot of times I do a lot of STEM outreach. So people ask me to speak or volunteer at a
Mhm.
program for middle schoolers or stuff like that. I try to make time and space to do that sort of thing.
That's
That's
great.
awesome.
And that
And you on
brings me
somebody's
joy.
whole dissertation committee, like you were doing a
Oh
whole lot
yeah.
of service.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's true. That's true. And also just talking to people, like how in our computer science community, it's all like, oh, you're interested in that? Have you talked to so and so? You should reach out to so and so. And so somehow my name usually gets brought up in those conversations as somebody's student will reach out, and I make it a point to make time for them because I mean we were
You
all
were them.
PhD students at
Yes.
one time and we needed help,
I
Lord.
think we got
Yes,
you on
you
the
child.
know?
list, actually. I'm literally checking my list. I'm like, I think we got France on the list for somebody to talk to.
Right? Like we needed help, and it's just important to reach back and help more people get across
Mhm.
that bridge. That's super important to me. So I'll make the time.
So before you head out, Kyla wants to really know, because I know we talked about this, what some really cool projects you have going on. If you could talk about them. I know sometimes you can't, but
Yeah. So when you were reading my bio, a lot of my bio about working on the customer innovation team and those things that I was doing, that was like my first job at Intel and what I was doing during that time. And I actually just started a new role in February, which is where I'm on the One Edge team. So the second half was like what I'm doing now. I'm on the One Edge team, working on 5G private wireless products. Um, I can't talk about that much, but that's
Okay.
what I'm doing. I'm
Okay.
mostly focused on the developer experience. So as we're developing these 5G edge network edge products of the future, of now and of the future, making sure that the developer experience is good, which
Hmm.
is new for me because I typically focus on user experience. So like the
right.
end user, the end customer, but the developer the computer scientist or the developer that's doing the coding and that's getting the documentation and going through that GitHub experience, they have their own set of needs and their own things that need to be met to make that job successful. And so that's kind of where I'm focused now for my product. Um, Kind of planning out the research roadmap, executing against it, making product requirements around that space. But before that, I was working on some other fun stuff. Like this project is not as fun and sexy as the things that I used to work on, but it's fun to me because it's very difficult and it's an area that I'm unfamiliar. So part of it feels like grad school all over again because I'm doing literature reviews, I'm researching, I'm teaching myself, what these acronyms mean. I've created a dictionary in my Notion, just trying to keep track of all these little acronyms and definitions around my product. But before that, my work was more aligned with my research area of technology and popular culture. So I worked on a lot of video game streaming, live streaming, content creation, that sort of stuff. Um,
Ooh.
my favorite
She's
product.
she's glossing over a whole lot of fun stuff. I just want y'all to
Well, I
know.
was about
Well,
to go
she
deep on one. I
Okay.
was going to go deep on one. So just high level. And then one that I really enjoy was a personal streaming PC. So this was the idea that we wanted to create a streaming appliance or device that streamers could use when live streaming. So people who like Ninja or Dr. Lupo, who are professional streamers, they typically have two computers. One is for gaming, only the game. It handles all the game stuff just to make sure that their game is at full capacity. And then they have a second computer that is just for streaming and it handles all the encoding, whatever broadcast software you're using, music, all those things. But it can be expensive to have to build two gaming computers basically.
it's
And
very
then
expensive.
right, and then you got to figure out, how do I connect these two? How do
Yep.
I connect
How do
the
they talk?
audio, and what are the
Mhm.
settings that I need to set up so that I can decide if I want you to hear my in-game audio but not the chat? And how do I make
Mhm.
sure that you can hear my audio and the people in the game on the other computer can hear my audio? It's like all these very difficult things that you got to figure out. And so we created a streaming appliance called a personal streaming PC, and we worked with a couple of different OEMs to create that. But for the project, I was the lead UX person or whatever, and it was cool because I got to, first of all, I had to watch a lot of Twitch because I knew about game streaming, but it wasn't an area that I was super excellent in. Chris, again, exposed me to Twitch because he used to watch it when we were in grad school. So I was like, oh, familiar with it, but I didn't know how to set up a live stream, let's say. So
Yeah.
I have all this live stream equipment, all the stuff that they use. I have a full live stream set up, all that type of stuff. Like if you come to my desk, one screen would have Twitch on at all times. And I'm just listening to what they're saying. I'm listening to how they're interacting with each other. What is the dynamic? What is the culture? So that I can understand things like at Intel, if we want to make an intelligent solution that helps you create highlight reels from your
Mm.
content, I need to know, and in order for me to know that that would be useful, I had to know what the current culture of highlight reels were. Like if you're
Mhm.
streaming, the streamer might say, oh, clip that, and then an audience member would clip the highlight reel, and then it would go, you get the URL, you could paste it into the chat. But I will only learn that from watching Twitch and understanding how they engage with each other. And then I would go to people's houses and like sit back there and just observe, like do ethnography or contextual
Yeah.
inquiry and like watch them stream. and understand things like what are they using, what all types of hardware do they have, Blue Yeti microphones, what kind of camera do they have a Stream Deck, all these things. I'm looking at where are their hands, where is their attention diverted to. They have several monitors, how are they organizing the monitors, what all software are they running, what's their process. All these things then feed into the UX of the product, because now I can go back to the product team and say, hey, well, this OEM only has 2 USB ports on their device. It needs 4, because the
Right.
person's going to have a USB this, a USB that. This is what I observed in the field. This is what most people have. Okay, well, it doesn't have an ability to collect Excel mics. How are we going to account for that? And so making recommendations on the IO ports, making recommendations on what additional adapters should be included in the box, planning the out-of-box experience, making diagrams for the connection diagrams. I wrote instruction manuals, all type of things, because I was working with other companies that didn't have a UX person. So I had to do the UX for them and their product from Intel.
For them to like marry kind of
Mm-hmm.
seamlessly together. Ooh.
That is so
Yeah.
cool. And nobody thinks, oh, I'm gonna be in a computing department and that's gonna be my job. Like, people don't know that what you do, all the cool stuff you worked on is even an option.
I think what's great about that story is that I understood it.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes I have conversations with computer scientists, it's very difficult for them to synthesize it down to be something that anybody could understand. Like, anybody could understand that what you're talking about, at least from our generation and younger.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the UX part. Like, if
yeah.
you can't tell a story and efficiently explain something, then you might struggle being a UX practitioner for sure.
So,
Absolutely. Well, Franz, this was wonderful. I'm so happy that we got the time to talk with you. I knew a lot about you already, but I'm glad that I got to hear like the details of a whole lot of stuff and just, catch up on what you're doing now. This is great. Jeremy, what you
This
about to
was
say?
super
Your
fun.
eyes are saying a whole lot.
I'm just like thinking to myself, like, if I would have gone to industry, would I be as cool as France? And like, am I scared? The answer is no. Like, I didn't even know, girl. I didn't even know.
Well, I definitely think being an intern 4 times and making the best use of those internships set my career up to be the way it is. It gave me a lot of flexibility, like the autonomy and things like that you saw me exercising in grad school. I really bought that into my career because I did 4 internships, and during that time I was hustling. Like, I was meeting people, I'm networking, I'm trying to get to know everybody. I want them to know me, so that they're speaking my name in rooms like with that lady when I weren't there.
Yes.
So
Somebody came all the way to meet you in Florida,
that's
from
what I'm saying.
Intel.
Like, that's how I feel. Like, I met Industry Jeremy. She is on the podcast, y'all. If y'all need, thank you for coming and sharing all of this about you.
Thank
Yes.
y'all for
But
having me.
absolutely. If people want to follow all the cool stuff you're doing, where can they find you on the interwebs?
Well, I do not tweet as much as I should. I keep saying all the time I want to be more involved in Twitter, but I am on Twitter. It's just my name, Franz L. Jackson. But my Instagram stories is where most of the action is, at Geek and Chic. And so many people think it's Geek and Chick. And I just think that's so funny, because why would that be my Instagram
It
name?
has a K on the end. What? That's not
Exactly. So it's just GEEK, the letter N, and then CHIC. And that's me, Geek and Chic.
She be geeking and shaking. I'm just saying.
This is the last thing I'm
Wow.
gonna say. People always ask me where that name came from. And to be honest, the first time I ever heard Geek and Chic was Jenny Jones, like when we were younger. And you remember Jenny Jones used to go at like 2:00 in the morning, and they would always be like, from geek to chic, and they would bring back people that were geeky in high school, and they like had this whole what we call glow up now. And so I always thought that was so funny, and I'm like, well, you could be both at the same time, and I'm gonna make that my Instagram name.
I like how you reclaim that story. It's like, look, you can be both. They do not have to be mutually exclusive.
Exactly.
Yes, and
yeah. Well, let me know when we can do part 2. This was fun.